Okay. Okay. But beloved, we are persuaded better things of you, and things that accompany salvation, though we thus speak. That's my key point.
No, no, sorry. Yeah. So what are the better things? What do you think the better thing? What is he talking about? Of better things, in your case, things that belong to salvation. It's not even that deep when he says better things that belong to salvation. Basically, we're just talking about eternal life. Remember, as we go through this, he's trying to encourage us. He's trying to lift them up. So he's going to bring back to remembrance why they received Christ in the first place. So salvation is eternal life. So he's just reminding them, your better things that you have is the eternal life. Just wanting them to stay focused on the reason why they even received Christ. You can start again at verse 10.
For God is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love, which ye have shown toward his name, in that ye have ministered to the saints and do minister.
God is not unjust. Meaning God is fair to all. And when we, as to them, and the things that they do and show their dedication to Christ, God is glorified. Especially when it is done in love. The things that we do in love, we're not doing for self. That's how strong love is. Love is the sacrifice you give to others. Or it's really not really love, it's just for yourself. So that anytime you do anything for a sacrifice, God sees that because he's rewarded by your reactions. By what you do in love, God is rewarded. And he's telling them, your good acts, your continual to be with Christ does not go unnoticed. God sees you, he notices you. And what comes with that is blessings and grace. You can continue to read.
And we desire that every one of you do show the same diligence to the full assurance of hope unto the end.
Hope, hope, hope. Sometimes we get hope confused. When we think of hope, we think of something that we want to happen. And a godly hope is what has happened.
Okay.
What you have had. You're not hope. You say hope in the idea of thinking, oh, this is what I want to happen.
Right.
But in a godly hope is what you already have happened. So it says the hope of the insurance, once again, is the eternal life. You have the insurance of total life. Is what he's saying. You have eternal life insurance. It's not what you're looking to possibly get. You already have it. Okay, continue to read.
That ye be not slothful, but followers of them who through faith and patience inherit the promises.
There we go again. The promise. What's the promise? The promise is Jesus died, was buried, resurrected, and now lives so that we can live. That's the promise that we have. That's the promise that we live for. That's the promise that we put a lot of trust and faith in. Go on and continue with 13.
For when God made promise to Abraham, because he could swear by no greater, he sware by himself.
Once again, he's just, go ahead and go down to 15. I'm going to finish that off. But I want to say this. As we're going through this, I want you to try to keep a couple of things in mind. What gets you through your day-to-day actions and what will get you through your life's journey? Just kind of toil around that and keep that in mind. We're going to get to that towards the end.
For when God made promise to Abraham, because he could swear by no greater, he sware by himself, saying, surely blessing I will bless thee, and multiplying I will multiply thee. And so after he had patiently endured, he obtained the promise.
Remember, these are Jewish Christians. So they are very familiar with Abraham. They're familiar with the promise that God gave to Abraham through his seed. It's funny that we speak about this right now. You know that Abraham had two sons but Abraham and Sarah had one son. The one son they had was the promise. The other son was not. That's actually the fight that's going on right now in Israel, because Abraham's and Sarah's son has the promise, but the other sons, who are Muslims now, want the promise. It's funny how they really are from the same lineage. They're both of these tribes are from Abraham. They really are from the same lineages. But one has the promise to say, really just to say that the land is there. What are they going to do just to say that the land is there? That they're literally fighting over this, and they're the same bloodline. But the Bible did say that there will always be torment there, and they will always fight over that land. But that's God's promise. And he constantly wants to remind them of God's promise. Even for us, we know that we have God's promise on us. That he would take care of us. He'll see us through our bad days, through our hard times, when we're being persecuted in different ways. Just because you're a Christian, people can tend to look down on you or slight at you. You can go ahead and finish this out.
The men verily swear by the greater, and an oath for confirmation is to them an end of all strife. Wherein God, willing more abundantly to show unto the heirs of promise the immutability of his counsel, confirmed it by an oath, that by two immutable things, in which it was impossible for God to lie, we might have a strong consolation, who have fled for refuge to lay hold upon the hope set before us. Which hope we have as an anchor of the soul, both sure and steadfast, and which entereth into that within the veil, whither the forerunner is for us entered, even Jesus, made an high priest forever after the order of Melchizedek.
So God, it's impossible for God to lie.
Yeah.
He's given us a promise. What is your anchor to your soul? It's your promise. The anchor to your soul is the promise. What do you think gets you through your life's journey? For you, what gets you through your life's journey? You have this whole journey ahead of you. So what gets you through it? I would say the promise. Promise gets me through my life, no matter how bad this life on this earth gets. I know it's temporary. I know nothing here I should put so much stake into that I'm afraid to let go, because everything in this world will go away. But I have a promise of eternal life with God, with Jesus. So I don't have a right to complain if something's not going right in this life. That's what he's telling them. You're complaining about stuff that are going now, but you have a promise. State your anchor in the promise. Don't worry about what you're going through right now. He's trying to say, I don't care how bad it gets. Even if you get locked up, even if you have to give your life, this life is temporary. It will come to an end. You have an eternal life to look forward to. In the comparison, it should be hardly nothing. Imagine if we can just live our lives that way, we can endure so much. So let's think about what can get you through your day-to-day struggles. What carries us through our day-to-day struggles? You remember Paul had a thorn in his side. We're all familiar with Paul having a thorn in his side. You know, it's funny, I reference these with the understanding that we all know the Bible pretty good. Kind of the same way the writer. I can say Paul had a thorn in his side, and we all are familiar with Paul having a thorn in his side. Well, he had a thorn in his side. He asked Jesus to take it away 3 times. Jesus said, my grace is sufficient. What does that mean, though? My grace is sufficient. He's telling Paul, you have this pain. The thorn, they say it's more like if you have a toothache. You have ever had a bad tooth that needed to come out? You know, most of the time it was painful, but just enough to know it's there, not really enough to bother you. But on days it would flare up so much you felt like you couldn't do nothing because it was just agonizing pain. That was Paul's pain in the side. For most times he knew it was there, but it didn't keep him from doing anything. Jesus is saying, you still can get to where you're trying to go. You still can do my work. You still get up in the morning. My grace is sufficient. It's not even keeping you from doing anything. It is just a reminder from where you come from. You eat every day. You have clothing on your back every day. You wake up every morning. That's his grace. Jesus is saying, my grace is sufficient. That's even for us. You can have the worst day that you possibly have, but if you made it home in one piece, his grace is sufficient. And you ask yourself, how do I apply that going forward? Because if we learn the word, we don't put it to use, what good is it just for us? We already know it. It should be uplifting us. So we walk around with this grace upon us, feeling great. But how do we move forward towards others? If someone looks like they're having a bad day, you can say to them, I know somebody who loves you no matter what. Everything in your life may look bad now, but I know somebody who has a place for you that is eternal. No matter what you're going through now, I know somebody who loves you just the way you are. And if you're like me, you will use yourself as an example. This same person loved me even though I was going through it. I had all of these problems. Most of my problems were self-inflicted. Either something I didn't do or something I was supposed to do will end me up in trouble. But still, I know somebody who loves me even in my trouble. But here's the key. This did not take away my trouble, but he lifted me above my trouble. Meaning I wasn't down and rotten in my trouble. I wasn't even worried about my trouble. My troubles didn't go nowhere, but he lifted my spirit above my trouble. I know somebody who can lift you above your troubles. And he loves you exactly the way you are. You do not have to change. You do not have to clean up your life. You don't have to change your attitude. Exactly how you are. When you wake up in the mirror, that person that you look at, that's the person he loves. That's how we can encourage someone else. And then your day-to-day grace. See someone going through a bad day. You can try to be kind to them and even tell them, I've gone through bad days. I've had horrible days. But you know what? I made it through that day. I don't know how I made it through that day, but I made it through that day because this guy who loves me gives me grace every day. And then when you tell him, guess what? I don't even deserve the grace that he gives me. I don't do half the things he would like for me to do. And still I have his grace on me. I have just in my life so much grace that you have to go back and think about your life and how much grace you had through your life. Like the things I did when I was a teenager, had I continued on that path, I probably should be locked up somewhere right now. If not dead. I've robbed, I've stole, I've sold. If it was street worthy, I've done it. There was a this is slightly funny. It was a time in my life when I had an odd against the police. Like somewhere in my mind, I thought they were wrong in keeping me from doing the dirty stuff I wanted to do. Now, y'all in the way. And somehow I was justifying that. I would have conversations with my partner about how much we just hate the police. They was just doing their job. But that was grace that brought me through all of that. There was a time every day in the park, right here in McNamara, me and my boys, we would smoke, we would drink, till the sun come up, till the sun went down. Especially in the summertime. McNamara was hot in the summertime. But somewhere along my life, the Lord took away the taste for all that. Not that I didn't have it, just I don't know when. Just one day He just took the taste away. That was His grace that He put upon me. And I wasn't even with Him then. I didn't even know Him. He knew me, obviously, but I didn't know Him. Look at God's grace that we have upon us, that He gives to us every day. When He says, my grace is sufficient, it means in all things. In all things. When you lose your job, guess what? His grace is sufficient. If you have children that are just running them up, still, His grace is sufficient. When people are hating on you for no reason at all, His grace is sufficient. And we don't have to struggle because our life isn't where we want it to be. I don't know who planned their life out and you're where you want. This is